welcome Mr. Andrew Parnham, good friend of mine from Sydney, head trainer and owner of PTJ Muay Thai, promoter, all-round nice guy according to some. What brings you to sunny Melbourne, your most favourite city in all of Australia?
Love Melbourne, mate, but thanks for having me at the start, but I'm here for the Naksu women's show, Yolanda versus Iman Barlow, which is going to be an absolute cracker, and looking to head over to the Hammer show first before that all kicks off.
Awesome. Before we get into just a casual chat about all things Muay Thai, tell me what 16-year-old Andrew Parnham was like.
Handsome, bit of trouble, to be quite honest. Still at school, but just getting by, I think. And that's actually when I started kind of following Muay Thai, and I kind of discovered Muay Thai. I hadn't started training yet, but I was doing everything I could to try and watch it and get every type of bit of information I could about it, really.
What was your first exposure to it?
I think it was the Fox Sports Channel 7 shows. They used to show Channel 7 Muay Thai back then, and it was awesome. Like I did everything I could to kind of record those shows back on the old VCRs, and I think I still got some of the VCRs at home. So that was also kind of where I got into a bit of a passion for collecting Muay Thai junk as well. So at the time, believe it or not, I was actually doing Hapkido too. My family were big boxing fans, so my dad and my grandfather used to drag me down to all the boxing fights down at the pubs and everything like that, but just loved a bit of martial arts, got into Hapkido, and then started watching the Thai fights and then started training.
So what was your first step into Muay Thai? Where'd you get started? How'd you get started?
I can't even remember how I found them, but I was just looking for a gym, and the only gym back then that was just Muay Thai was Taipan, and that's how I got into it from there.
Yeah. Do you remember your first time walking in, training?
Yeah, I do actually. I was super pumped. I think I was over pumped. And now looking back at how I was back then, and the guys who come for their first time into my gym now in that same zone, I kind of appreciate it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what I started to think about now. Is it's like I didn't talk to my parents for 3 months until they let me do martial arts when I was like 12 years old. And sometimes I think about when we get new students coming in, like, I'm like, for someone coming in, especially the younger ones, that's something they might have wanted to do for a long time. And even for the older guys, it might be something they've wanted to do their whole lifetime and didn't know how to get started. And it's such a big step coming in. And it's, remembering that feeling is probably something we all kind of need to think about as trainers and gym owners, of how intimidating it is, but how much it means to some people.
Always, and I have to keep, I think I'm constantly reminding myself about that, so I'm okay with that now, but I constantly have to remind my guys and the more experienced guys that you guys might have been training now for 1 to 5 odd years and whatever, and you're so comfortable in walking into a gym, but just the fear for some people of walking into a place that's got a boxing gym alone, and the noises and the stuff that we really love and thrive off, for some people is just, it's flat out scary. So yeah, you've got to accommodate that.
How long did you train before you jumped in the ring?
It wasn't that long, to be quite honest. I think I'd even jumped in straight to get as quick as possible, either in the ring within like 6 months or something like that, and then go to Thailand within that same type of time frame. One came before the other. I can't remember which way, and that kind of sealed the deal. I went over on a gym tour back then, and we went to it was what's called now like WMC or Lamai gym in Samui at the time, and Stephen Fox was there, and I was just hook, line and sinker, and still to this day, like, I don't have anything that I'm as passionate about or have been as passionate about for such a long time as Muay Thai, and that's 20 years now. So.
Yeah. When you first fought in Sydney, I know Sydney probably had some of the most restrictive fight sport rules. Like, I remember watching maybe like Stan the Man and Maurice Smith fight with shin guards there.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And like, you could fight Kyokushin karate without shin guards, but you couldn't fight kickboxing or Muay Thai. When you first fought, was it shin guards and Muaythai, or what was it?
Yeah, so I had absolutely no other intention other than to fight full Thai rules from the start, because that was something I'd watched, and the rules back then were you had to have shin guards and fight karate, no knees or anything. So my first 3 fights were under those rules, and And I can even remember now, like after I'd had my first fight without those and wanting to do that so much, people were asking me like, oh, what's it like, man? Like, oh, you're crazy. And I was like, yeah. And it was, I had never even thought about anything else other than that. So, so for me, I loved it. It was really cool, and I wanted to keep doing that.
Yeah, and then when you went over to the WMC camp, you fought out of there?
At first, no. So the first trip was just the tour, and I was green as hell, and we did that, and then I just kept on going back. Like I think by the last time I'd been to that particular camp, I'd been going regularly, like twice a year or something, and then I did a longer stint, stayed there for about 3 months with Stefan, which was really cool. Got to meet a whole lot of really cool guys, and relationships which I'm so thankful for that I've got now. Like even guys like Don, who's one of my best mates, I met back then when I was going back then, you know, and I still remember all those guys, and had my first fight over there for that gym, and that was crazy in itself. Like for me, it was just awesome, the whole bit about it, and loved it, and still wanted to keep going with it. So.
Yeah, because I guess like these days, the experience of going to Thailand and training and fighting's become a lot more mainstream is maybe not the right word, but it's a lot more common. And I guess it's more accessible, and the experience is probably a little bit different, and how people train and what they get out of it. What was it like having a fight there compared to having fights in Australia for you? How did you feel like going in? Was it excitement or fear?
Both. It was everything, all of the above. Like it was still really raw. I guess the equivalent to fighting back then would be equivalent to going up country, I guess, in Thailand now and fighting there. Even though like Samui now is, I haven't been there for a long time, but back then there were still current Thai fighters. It was still really raw, and they didn't even have any cement roads and stuff like that. So it was still very rustic in some ways, and I was just like scared as hell. And then the moment we touched gloves, I'll never forget it. And that number, I'm a numbers guy, and that number to this day still means a lot to me. The number 13, I think it might have been like I had like 13 stitches on Friday the 13th, and it was weird how that all kind of came into play. So.
And then you came back and fought again in Australia?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. No like world beat or anything like that, but I came back to Australia, and I remember even after the first little trip, every time I would go and come back, it was just take you to a different level. I mean, now it's really different. We've got so many awesome trainers, so many awesome gyms, and I feel that you can get, in a lot of respects, better, quicker here because of the attention and everything like that. But back then, you just come back at a whole nother level.
Yeah. Then you ended up living and teaching in Thailand, teaching English.
Yeah.
It's odd that you're teaching English, but
I know, even though I can't speak it properly.
The one-eyed man.
But I actually moved over there. I didn't really have any money either, and I'd went over and with all the hopes and dreams of the world of doing the whole Thai thing, and doing the whole John Wayne Parr thing, who I'd idolised at the time, and Chris Allen was someone I got to train with at Samui at the time, and that guy was an absolute freak. But I was actually going for the World Cup and based myself out of a gym there, which was unbelievable. Pinsin Chai back then had some of the most amazing fighters at the time. Thailand Pinsin Chai, Captain Kane was there, Berkluk, and the trainers were next level. It was really hard being a white guy going in there and pretty much shrugged off from the start, but being able to be around those guys and have that experience was like something I'll never forget. And I actually, being exposed to that helped me with the language a lot, which I'm so thankful for now. I didn't have any Aussie mates at the time. Got really frustrating as well, but stuck through it, and went to the World Cup, fought on, started running out of money, and then started teaching on the weekends to try and make that extra coin. And then someone headhunted me at the time and said, well, do you want to come and work at a school full time? And how do you think about that? And I thought, maybe I should just take it for a year and get some money behind me and then come back. And I thought, yeah, okay, sweet, so let's do it. And the money was good, so being broke, not having anything, but fearful of coming back to Australia, I just said, let's go with it. And I started teaching in a school and absolutely fell in love with teaching too. So that led me to the path of teaching. And since then, even now, like I love teaching, Muay Thai, whatever. Like I'm passionate about learning, and that kind of helped me along that journey too.
And you were still training and competing at that
Nah,
stage?
so then I just like done. I started just going. They've got there's a national stadium which was nearby where I was living, and I could just go and hit the bag and all that type of stuff while I was working. I was working near the old gym I was training at as well, so I could just muck around and still be involved in the sport in that respect. Go to the fights every weekend, still catch up with fighters, and Stefan, I still had a good relationship with Stefan at the time, so I'd go and help out wherever I could at the time. And then and the school I was working at actually introduced a bilingual program, which was really cool too. So rather than just teaching English, they then introduced like a half-half program, and that involved PE and stuff. And then because I was an ex-boxer and I got along well with the PE staff, I got to be able to teach Muay Thai in English to those guys too, which is really nice.
And what made you come back here?
Family, I don't know. It's frustrating and hard living in Thailand, even speaking the language and stuff. But I got married, and I thought about coming back here to, again, about the buck, trying to make some more money to maybe go back over there. And came back here, started working at my old gym, and then realised that there wasn't any gyms where I was living at. And my brother pretty much got the stick out and said, man, like, what are you doing? Like, you should be... You know, we talked about it, even my dad, my mum, everyone's like, man, what are you doing? Like, there's nothing here. You love it. You love teaching. Everything you do is around this, so why don't you do it? And I went, all right. And then took a big, leap. Like, I had no little PCYC thing going. I wasn't teaching out of anywhere or anything, and I just went, fuck it, just give me a place. And me and my wife, we just moved into the gym illegally at the time and just ran with it. And I don't know, man.
Is it the same location that's in now?
Same location now, 9 years in, and a bit like yourself, sometimes if I'm just going to do something, I just do it. Doesn't matter what's going on around me. And we had a new baby at the time. Everything was just all happening at once, and we opened it up, and I'll never look back now. It's great. So.
Yeah. And for the guys that don't know, it's PTJ Muay Thai in...
Yep, in Gleysville. Ride City, yeah.
Yeah, and it's over the years, like, you've produced a lot of fighters over a short amount of time, and it's something. When you started, did you have any fighters that were had already fought and had experience, or did you just build everyone, or
Bit of both.
Bit of both.
Bit of both. I was really lucky when we first started that it was raw. I just picked up some guys off the street. I've actually still got the membership form for my number one member. My number one member was a guy called Tyler Brown. And he brought another guy called Scott Wilson, so he's my number 2 member. And
Scott Wilson.
Wow. So he was my second member, and pretty much trained those 2 guys by themselves for the first month, and loved it, and they did too, I hope. And so then he became my first fighter, and then another guy, good mate of mine, rest in peace, Mark Fowler. He came from another gym, and then the rest is kind of history. Yeah.
Who, stylistically, because your gym, your fighters have very, for lack of a better term, very good Thai style. They're good kickers. They knee well. Who have been your influences, Australian or Thai influences in the style, and where do you borrow your style from? Because everybody's obviously we're not coming up with anything new. Someone's done it before us.
It's funny, I've gone through shifts. Like when I first opened, I've loved nothing but Muay Thai on knee style fighters from, obviously I fought at 72 kilos, was the string bean, and for me they really suited me, and I love the clinch, and everything I did was around the clinch. So when I first opened up the gym, I was like, yeah, sick. This is just going to be a knee gym. Yep. And I pretty much held true to that for the first year to 2 years. We clinched constantly, and I pride myself in our clinch game at the gym, but and that's the way I wanted it to be. But when you look at the way people are built and the way people move and just the genetics of different people, that's not possible. So I try to keep an open mind based on what people's strengths are and build on that. And you know, if they're a natural kicker or they've got a really good eye, and try and base it all around that. Or if they are tall and lean and love to walk forward, then I'll move on to a Muay Thai style maybe if they're good at it. But so it's kind of hard that way. I try to adapt to what style that I feel that the person's strengths are around. Yeah.
And obviously, like you get, like all gyms, you get different fighters coming from different places who already have a training experience, and I think it's like a mistake sometimes trying to change their style.
Yeah, in some respects, I'm also like a really big, I'm a visual learner too. Like I've always been able to just watch and produce. Some people, not everyone's like that, but I think it's so important no matter what you do or what part of the game you are in, that you're constantly surrounded by Muay Thai and watching the Thais do their thing. And I even say to the new guys that come into the gym, like, if you haven't watched a Muay Thai fight, how do you know what you're supposed to look like, right? So we've always had screens showing Muay Thai from the start, and I always, whenever possible, encourage the beginners to hang around and watch things and all this type of stuff, and encourage even fighters to get involved in the whole Thai style of fighting and watching it, so that they really know what they're supposed to be about. So
yeah, and obviously anyone who kind of knows Rebellion, particularly they'd know Singh who's a trainer now at your gym and fights out of your gym. Whenever.
Whenever we can get it.
How did Singh end up at the gym? Because he's a lot of people don't realise how much of an accomplished fighter Singh was when he came here. It wasn't like he was well past his prime when he came here. He was established champion, was a Channel 7 champion.
You could almost say that his kind of career got cut by coming here.
Yeah.
But I think the vision that perhaps the university that he came from, and also himself, he just won and I think defended his Channel 7 belt just when he was on the way over.
Yeah.
Was a part of the first Real Hero and the scholarship scheme that was established between a place called the Australian Centre, which is an education centre in Sydney, and the university, and he was the first scholarship winner. So he came over, and even for him it was really tough. Like they're really lucky in some respects when they first come over, that they're not just thrown into a gym out in the suburbs and have got absolutely no Thai and any aspects of home where they move to. But my wife is amazing with the boys. She's almost like a mother figure to those guys, and I can speak Thai to her to a certain extent, and we're close to the Thai town and all that type of stuff, which really helps make the transition quite easy.
When you say Singh was part of the university, what was he part of a camp, or just as a university program where he was studying at?
So the Jombung University, the Ratchapat Jombung University in Thailand actually has a Muay Thai college, and it's awesome. And they focus on all aspects of Muay Thai, from Muay Boran and Muay Thai history to refereeing and judging, the sports science side of it, the athlete side of it, and teaching, and there's even language parts of it as well. So their goal at the end of the program is to almost create the perfect person around Muay Thai, so they can, and their pathway outside of that is these guys go whether to go into open gyms or work in high school teaching Muay Thai sports, sports teachers and all of that type of stuff. So he was involved in that, and when he was doing that, I kind of call him a Muay Thai geek. So Ajahn Samlan Ded is like a famous late 90s fighter who's multiple Rajanamurn Stadium champion, another trainer out of there. They have a Muay Boran college, and Singh is natural at it anyway, athletic wise, but he became a bit of a geek in the whole Muay Boran aspect, and him and a couple of the guys were like their shining stars.
Oh, wow.
And that whole thing, and they won a whole lot of competitions. And if you've ever seen those guys, they've come down here and do the shows. If you've ever seen those guys do a Muay Boran demonstration, it's phenomenal. And even in the gym, like, we don't teach it, just don't feel that there's a big market for it. But he still does it in the gym, and he knows all the names and for all the moves and stuff. It's really it's a credit to him, but also a credit to his teachers at that university.
Yeah, we find that with Ton, who's at our gym. He's the same. Like, he's not a well-known guy around, but his knowledge and history, and like he was trained up to be an official, and got training Muay Boran, and it's just like you see the broad range of knowledge they have isn't the traditional what a lot of people expect from it. Some Thai trainers who are just fighters or ex-fighters, and it adds a whole new dimension to the gym, having someone with that level of experience.
And I think, unfortunately, and this is just a broad statement, that a lot of those guys who are in that top echelon of fighters simply don't have the time to learn that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the John Bung program, let's face it, a lot of gyms, it'd be like going to Chelsea or Melbourne Storm and trying to take their best guys from their team and bring them into a Muay Thai college. What team is going to let those guys go, right? But they do their best to try and get mid-range guys perhaps into the gym, develop them to become better people, give them a career, give them a path to move other than your local nightclub security guy or your local chef or whatever. And I think that's really cool. So I hope it keeps up.
What do you feel like Singh's brought to the gym, other than like what we've mentioned, as far as like the way you train people? And obviously he's learned a lot coming here, because there's a whole other side of training Westerners and running classes, which is a foreign concept a lot of times.
Yeah, the first 2 years was challenging for both of us, and but I'm happy it was kind of like a clean slate. Like I'd hate to say, but I'm happy I never got the whole like Phuket Thai guy that came in and did all that stuff. Not that they're all that way, but it was really challenging for him. But I feel myself like we both learn off each other a lot. I think, like what you said, he's learned a lot about dealing with foreigners, because we can at least break that down in their language as to why certain things are the way they are. But on the other side of it, helped me also around that whole change of style, from developing from just that pure, all I wanted was just that Muay Thai type of style, and him being a technician, like it just opened my eyes up to around footwork and head movement and kick styles and all this type of stuff. So being able to kind of have someone like that around it's been phenomenal.
It's like an encyclopedia of Muay Thai.
Really is, yeah, it really is. And all the guys that have come through like that, it's been great. And I'm lucky that I've got, being able to speak Thai does not mean you're a good trainer by any means. Like, that's bullshit. But being able to understand and have a conversation and pick someone's brain and being able to speak in their mother tongue about it, I think I'm so blessed to have that.
Yeah. In the last sort of few years, obviously legislation changes, promotions change, new gyms come on board. So there's like in Melbourne, Muay Thai gyms have gone from being the rarity to being the majority when it comes to fight gyms. There's obviously that influx of the MMA scene and stuff as well. But looking over the last few years, how are you seeing Muay Thai change in Sydney, and then I guess in a broader term around Australia?
In Sydney, I think the future looks bright. Like, I look at all the, when I still think that I'm a new gym, but I mean, when I look at these newer gyms that are coming through, and they're young guys and they're passionate, and they're passionate about Muay Thai, which I'm passionate about, and I think the future looks good with those guys. Like, I think it's awesome, because a lot of them have done the whole Thailand thing because it's so accessible now. They've been there, they've fought there, they've come back, they've got access to their old trainers who know the game over here, and things like Muay Thais and your shows and stuff like that. They've just got a wealth of knowledge and they're just picking it up. So it's exciting times for me, because I think there's been more of a sway towards that Thai style. People coming back from Thailand on holidays is influencing that as well. The MMA thing's there, but which people might know, I've never been a real big fan of MMA, but when now MMA, from what I see and what I know of, a lot of the guys are all doing the whole Muay Thai thing, that in itself has been a blessing for us too. Yeah. So the future does look bright. It's cool.
Yeah. So a couple of, I guess, topics that always seem to come up. One's obviously the scoring thing, and there was a big controversy recently on one of your shows, and you and I have spoken about it a lot of times. And the other one is the fighters going back to Thailand for 2 or 3 weeks before they fight, which my personal feel is a lot of times they come back less prepared for their fight than when they left. When they're here training with their trainer, they have a fight in mind, and then they go over there and they're with a new gym and a new trainer and basically getting the groove in just before it. Yeah. How do you deal with that with your own guys? Is that something you encourage them to do going over there, or for shorter stints, or what's your belief? Like you said earlier, you feel like you almost people kind of can get a better start here.
Yeah.
than over there?
Personally, my guys never really do that. Like, they're here, I hope they do, but I think they enjoy the prep here more.
Yeah.
I encourage guys to go over and do the whole Thai thing because it's awesome and it worked with me, and
it's an experience.
It is an experience, and it ignites that passion. Like, I go there when I get stale. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the whole go there to prep for a fight and come back and fight here, because unless you're doing it way out and you've got time to come back and acclimatise, then mate, the chances of getting sick and all that type of stuff is just, you've witnessed it. I've had it happen to me.
Yeah,
like, it's
a
too
lot of
much,
times on
man.
shows getting pull-outs and stuff, because guys do that.
And I find out that they're going there after I've matched it. I'm like, oh man, what are you doing? Can you at least do it like a month before? But so be it. But the judging thing's an interesting one. I don't think it'll ever go away, because we put so much emphasis on it, which is cool, and it's a good, healthy discussion. But if you look at any sport, NRL, like I love my NRL, and people love their football, it always comes around the officials, and no matter what you do, no matter what sport you do, you're never going to get it 100% right.
Yeah.
But I do feel there's a lot of work that needs to be done around getting a little bit, I'd say a lot more education over here, not just for trainers. Like, I'm not the expert, but more exposure around a Thai style of scoring. And I'm not talking about scoring only third, fourth round and just scoring kicks and all that.
And
type
that's
of
the thing
bollocks.
that I think that's the big thing that gets, like, when they say the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, is there's Thai style scoring of what's emphasised, and there's also the Thai style stadium thing of gambling and stuff. Those things get diluted, and there's things that people don't want to see here, but they mix up the topics.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a fundamental, like, it's not just an error of what you see, it's a belief of just
It's
pure
a belief
of what it is. And
it's a belief of what it is,
Yeah.
without a thorough understanding of what's actually happening. And we've spoken about a lot of times around the judging every round and all that type of stuff. And I actually remember seeing, I think it was Soren that wrote something about it a long time ago, and it's 100% correct. The only reason, or generally the only reason why those first two rounds aren't scored is because they're not scored because the fighters aren't fighting that way.
Yeah.
Over here, I'm a proponent of scoring every round, mate. Like, if they're going to fight, score it. But if they're not, then draw it. It doesn't matter. It's a fight. So that's what happens. But what I am passionate about is the way that it's scored and what is scoring. And we could talk about it for hours, but I'm passionate about it, and I'm passionate about trying to encourage people to learn more about it. I'm passionate about trying to learn about it myself and continue my knowledge. But I think until someone does something about it and helps educate people, it's never going to change. And I look at it like the UFC, and I remember years ago, like, the average UFC fan was just a numpty who was just watching dudes punch on and just loved violence, and that's cool. But when you look at what a UFC fan these days knows, it's like freaky, the wrestling stuff they know about, the striking stuff they know about. And where's that come from? It's come from the UFC.
Persistently educating.
Yes, and a lot of the time without the fans even knowing about it, it's the commentators helping them and educating them through that. And I think something like yourself, and through the help of something like Muay Thais and people who are passionate and have a knowledge of it, I think that's the only way we're going to move forward, or we're going to end up in situations, what's happened to me in my last show, with a really close fight between two awesome fighters, Jay Tonkin and Palang Chog, where you've got a crowd that's uneducated as well, almost like tearing the house down because they disagree with a decision. And that's going to happen too, but when the fans start to understand it more, then I think that's going to help too. But we need to work together to get that happening.
Yeah, and I think it's like, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I don't think the distinction between what we think we like Muay Thai scoring, sometimes people go, it's the Thai thing. I think it's universal with any fight sport.
Yeah.
No, like
totally.
Boxing, you don't rank aggression over effective punching. I used to wrestle, and being overly active in a wrestling match doesn't mean anything until you score a takedown and you get them in a position. In Taekwondo, you can throw 50 kicks, but unless a kick lands on target and makes a sound, it doesn't score. In K1, if you read the WKA K1 titles and rules, that even even in that, a kick to the body, a high kick to the body is regarded higher than a kick to the leg. And it doesn't mention anything about hardly anything ever.
Participation points or points for trying?
And I don't
it's
like,
true.
it's not to disparage anybody's thing, but it's like, people always cite aggression and work rate and work control. It's like anything in life. Unfortunately, like, the result is what counts in most things. Like, you can do those things, you can throw a lot of shots, but if none of them are landing, that's the issue. And I don't like,
totally.
I always like, I feel like it's this thing between divide of like, oh, Thai style, this style. It's like, no, it's fight sport stuff. There's a reason why in footy, Aussie rules, you have 6 points and then you have behinds and then you got nothing. Just because you kick the ball in that direction 100 times doesn't mean you scored a point. It's when it goes through the goal.
The hoop, man.
Unfortunately, I think that's, for us, you start to get a divide of, these are the Muay Thai people who want to be Thai, and these are the people who are dealing with reality. And it's like, no, you can.
Because that's not fair too, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then when people say that grinds my goat as well. It's like, you're talking about aggression, effective aggression, and then, but then,
there's a lot of MMA terms that creep into it too, like like octagon control. We don't necessarily, being in the center of the ring or being your back against the ropes, not a.
And where's the reward for being defensive? Like, you look at a fighter like Sanchai is constantly fighting on the back foot, and people put him up on a pedestal, and rightly so, but have they actually watched what he's done in fights and how he's won fights against guys who were effective, aggressive fighters? And he's done exactly that, which we're all kind of arguing against. And the same goes with like fights, boxing fights. It's an eternal argument between a skillful hand-speed fighter, defensive fighter like Mayweather versus, a heavy-handed fighter and stuff like that. But in the end, I think education needs to be increased for both the fans and everybody involved. But on the other side, it's good, healthy conversation too. And close fights like the one we had, I'm so excited that, I cop a lot of flack over it or whatever, but I'm excited that it's ignited that conversation, which I think is really good.
Yeah. And this is something like another part we've talked about in that fight in particular. And like, I think you're in between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Which, in my view, there's no other way around the situation, because you had Singh as one of the judges, and people think, oh, you've got a Thai judge who's friends with the fighter. Yeah. But it's in that situation where we've just talked about his education and his background. He's the most qualified person to be there. Yeah. And unfortunately, we have that in Melbourne a bit as well, because we put a lot of Thai judges on. Yeah. And people go, oh, the Thais. It's like,
it's tough, man.
Sometimes and a lot of times they are the most qualified person in that situation. And not just because they're Thai. And there's Thais who aren't good trainers, and there's Thais who aren't good judges, but there's Thais who are awesome.
There are Thais who are awesome and can be impartial and have had the education and knowledge to back it up, and he's one of them. But I think that also, like for me, as in my job, I think that also really highlights a lack of depth. Like, I'm proud of our state and the things that people like Elias and Trevor and myself and Singh and my brother and other people have done in our state. I think we've got the officiating to a level which I'm so proud of, but it highlights to me a lack of depth. And until people are willing to put their hand up and actually jump in and help, then where are we going with this? Like, it's just going to keep going around in circles,
and
man.
It's going back to that education thing where I've said it a few times in combat sports and stuff, is that educating the judges is a really important part of it. Yeah. But educating the trainers and the fighters and the trainers, because you can have the best judge in the world, but if the trainer tells their fighter that that's bullshit, you got ripped off, we're not getting anywhere.
This is why I'm so excited about our current state of affairs with all the new guys, right? Like, they're so passionate about what they're doing. They're constantly on YouTube. They're watching fights, self-educating, a whole lot of stuff. And that's why I reckon the future's bright, man. I think it's fantastic. So hopefully through them and everybody else working together, we can start to push that way, because the moment you stop learning, like, man, like, you're never going to be perfect at whatever you do. You've got to continue to learn no matter what, right? And the moment you stop that, then, mate, we're kind of putting into a bit of a dead end.
Speaking of that evolution, you've mentioned him a couple of times. Your brother Nathan, he's a strength and conditioning guy. I love his stuff and follow his Instagram and things. And a lot of your fighters used to work with him, and now they're working with other strength and conditioning guys. It's a thing that because like that's what I studied at
background,
uni, and
yeah.
I got a background, and I appreciate that doesn't matter what the sport, like there's a split of the time you put in. You're a big fan of it?
On the whole, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because of our environment and what we have to deal with being full-time workers and full-time athletes all at once. And I just think to be able to get to a certain level, it makes it really tough without having something like that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like the Thai thing is, I think, really, really important to get to a certain level, because without that whole repetition and testing of absolutely everything, you're not going to get to that point. So we generally, like at our gym, and if people are enthusiastic about it, they can do it from the day one. But I encourage them to do the Thai style thing first. It might not be right, but until you prove that you're really going to kind of stick this out, then what's the point in going ahead and like spending the money and the time doing the S&C stuff when you're not even really sure if you're going to continue with the sport?
Well, the biggest return for your time is going to be learning the sport, I guess, at the start, and then
the technical aspect, right, and getting the repetition, getting that all down pat, and I love that phase of it. And then once they get to a certain level, I feel that to take it to the next level is either go and train full time and either live overseas or what have you, or go down that route and train smarter, not longer or harder or whatever, and train smarter. And you know what, your fight career will it'll be longer.
Outside of your own gym at the moment, looking around Australia, because I know you follow the scene, you're one of the people that I think genuinely knows most states and their fighters. Who are the fighters that you're seeing coming through now that you think are the ones to keep an eye on? And that's going to be the future champions. They're champions now, but people might not know them.
The one kid that I'm constantly excited to watch and I really want to see where he takes it is that Lockie.
Yeah,
you know, we spoke about him before, and I just watched the way that guy fights, and I watched the way that he's handling himself over there for such a young dude. But not just because he's fighting, but the maturity in which he's fighting. I think he's a kid we should really keep a good eye on.
Yeah.
Locally, there's so many of them now starting to come through, but it's a longevity thing. Like, we've got Siam Cup and young guys fighting from such an early age, like 6 years old now, fighting through, which I think is fantastic, and it can only make the future brighter, but it's going to be a real balancing act as to how many of those kids are actually going to continue to be able to train for that 10 or fight and compete for more than 10 years to get to the adult level. Lockie's my number one pick at the moment. I think Tyler Hardcastle in Perth, man, like I love watching that kid. There's no secret, I love southpaws, man, and watching Tyler, like those last couple of head kick KOs, man, that was phenomenal. Up in Queensland, it's kind of hard because I think some of the Queensland talent, it's obviously there, and it's like a breeding ground for just raw toughness and everything like that. But some of the guys are starting to move on a little bit. Look at like someone like Jake Lung. I want to see him fight more, if at all possible. And Ben Marnie, I don't know where he is right now.
Apparently he's moving more onto boxing now, which is
and I can understand that too, man. And he might even come back after that, but financially probably better off for him. But New South Wales, we've got some really good youngsters coming through too, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with coming through the ranks. So Lewis Regis, man, like the guy is a freak. He's got so much responsibility on his shoulders. I don't know how he does it, gym, family, the whole bit, but he's a guy that I'm still so excited to watch and fight.
Me too.
George Mann is the man. I still think George Mann is the man at 69 kegs, and I don't think there's anyone who could touch him. And down here, I'm really excited to watch Alex, man. He's one of my favourites. Alex, and I'm really excited about him versus Jay. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone goes. I look at like Blair's card coming up, and I see how many Thais are in WA right now. It's pretty scary, man. So it'll be interesting to see over the years how that's going to translate into fighting.
Because it's like an incubator over there. There's so many experienced
man.
Australians. There's so many good level fighters, and then there's all this Thai talent coming in, and a lot of shows. And it's like if they keep on top of their stuff, it's going to be pretty sick.
Yeah,
like
it will be.
It's like you go there and you go and sit at a Epic or a Domination, and you look around, and it's like even from the first fight, the way that guys fight is phenomenal. So
It's good to see.
I'm going to throw a couple of names at you.
Yeah.
Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Nothing tricky. I'll start easy.
This isn't an ambush, is it, Tom?
Do you remember this voice? Yolanda.
Hard working. Am I supposed to give like one word or just like a statement?
No, not too many words, but more than one word.
More than one word. One of the most dedicated people I've ever worked with. Can be hard work, but yeah, phenomenal athlete, man, and it's hard to match that.
Yep. Our good friend Don Miller.
Exactly that, my good friend, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people go through their life as a Muay Thai trainer. I've watched it, and they go from being like loving it to hating it to loving it to hating it to just hating it. He's a guy who has been involved in it for so long and still loves it. Might not love everything that he does every single day sometimes, like all of us, but he still sits there and watches fight.
He has
after
a lot
fight
on his
after
plate
fight.
fighting the government, Andrew. You got to give him credit.
But man, he still watches it, and that's why I love him for that as well. which is
Yeah.
good.
Superboy, one of the trainers down in Melbourne.
Man, he's a gun. Like the quality of athlete that guy produces, and I'm not talking about like just through sheer the numbers game. You got 100 people coming through, so you're going to get 2. If you watch the pad work that he's doing with those guys, and the hand movement, the placement, the footwork, and everything that he does with his fighters, man, like he's a freak.
Yeah. Darren Riddler-Reese.
He's actually an idol of mine, funnily enough, when I was a young fighter, and kind of, I guess, in some ways an idol now. Like I watch what he's doing with his gym and the fighters he produces, and man, he's just like I'd say he's like a treasure for me anyway.
Yeah. My favorite fighter, which I always ask people, Soren.
Pioneer as well, man.
Yeah.
Like a proper technician. Like, I love that type of style of fight, whether it's not just Muay Thai, proper Muay Thai fighter.
Yeah.
And Channel 7's my favourite stadium, and he's fought there, man. And he's training guys, and the guys he trains, I can see what he produces in those guys, and he's kind of handing that down, and it's really awesome to see. So
Yeah. If you could have one Thai legend of all time to train with, or pick their brain, or have their brain inside your head, or who would it be?
one.
You can have many, but tomorrow you could upload your brain. It might be helpful. After the weekend with Don Miller, you might need to.
I would need it. Oh man. I want to bring him out here too, man. Lam Namun.
Yeah.
I would love to have him in my. Does that sound weird? In my head.
As long
It
as
does.
you have.
Yeah, Lam Namun, Nam Kabawan, those type of guys. But even Ajahn Samlan from the Muay Thai College has a phenomenal Muay Thai brain too.
Yeah.
And they're the guys.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's nice to talk to you, not over messages and be abused.
Please.
Good luck tomorrow, man, and good luck with everything Muay Thai.
Thanks so much for having me
Thanks,
on,
man.
man. Keep doing the good things. Loving it.
Cheers.
Awesome. I'll get the photo.